If you were trapped in a creepy-ass mansion with a ballerina vampire girl trying to tear your head off, what would you do? These criminals thought that they were in for some easy money, but they're about to find out that they've messed with the wrong little girl. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the vampire girl in Abigail. Late one night, somewhere in New York City, a young ballet dancer named Abigail walks out to center stage and starts practicing her routine. Meanwhile, this woman Joey, a former army medic, is lurking in an alleyway across town where she climbs into the backseat of a blacked out SUV when it arrives to pick her up. She's part of a team of criminals on a mission to kidnap the girl and hold her for ransom money from her wealthy father, but taking this job was their biggest mistake. The other half of the team gets to the family's multi-million-dollar property early, and their hacker, Sammy, takes down the house's security system from a van parked across the street, while the lookout, Rickles, gets in position on the roof to keep watch. Joey and the others arrive right on schedule, walking straight through the front door and choosing their hiding spots in the target's bedroom. Moments later, the car carrying Abigail pulls onto the property and she takes a seat on her bed, completely unaware of what's about to happen. Or maybe that's just what she wants them to think. The girl doesn't give up as easily as they thought, but with the help of Peter, the group's muscle, Joey is able to hit her with some sedatives that knock the girl out, and they sneak out through the back of the property without being caught, climbing into the back of the van and speeding off to their safe house somewhere on the outskirts of the city. Sometime later, they finally arrive at a creepy old manor way out in the middle of nowhere, where they meet up with Lambert, the man who organized the job. He says that there's 50 million V-Bucks on the line if they can do this right. All that they need to do is keep an eye on the girl for the next 24 hours, until they can get her father to pay up. Joey tries to ask for more information about the girl's family, but Lambert tells her that it's not important, reminding them to always stick to their code names and collecting their phones so that they can't be tracked. On his way out, he instructs them that only Joey is to speak with the girl so that she'll only hear one of their voices, and just like that, their night from hell is about to begin. Okay, these guys are the worst babysitters ever, and just wait until they find out who this girl really is. Here's the thing though, Joey and her crew are all probably too caught up in the moment to notice, but from the very start, there's been a few red flags about this job that seem a bit suspicious. For one thing, doesn't it seem just a little too simple that all that they had to do was just deactivate the locks and then walk right in through the front door? I mean, for people with so much money and such an advanced security system, shouldn't it have been just a tiny bit more difficult to get inside? It's common sense. They have something like $1.5 million worth of cars in the driveway, but they left their 12-year-old daughter alone at the house without even so much as a single security guard? Nah, something about this just doesn't add up, but it gets even stranger when you notice the details. They were probably just too busy trying not to get caught to pick up on this themselves, but in the girl's bedroom, it looked like the mirror on her vanity was covered up with a sheet. Why? Because if somebody had noticed that she didn't have a reflection, then they might have not fallen for the trap. And then we have the manor itself. Call me paranoid, but why exactly is there a multi-million-dollar mansion full of priceless artifacts just sitting there empty for a bunch of criminals to use as their safe house? As for Lambert here, he said that he was collecting their phones because he was worried about them being traced, but then Sammy was already using hers at the hideout. If it really was about security, then it's already too late because every single one of them can already be traced out there. And it seems like they should have ditched the phones before they got to the safe house just to be sure. Like I said, it's all small details, but sometimes picking up on the little things can mean the difference between life and death. If I were them, I'd be having second thoughts about this whole plan, but by the time that they realize just how screwed that they really are, it's already going to be much too late. The others gather around in the bar and start discussing their thoughts on who the girl's father could really be, speculating that he must be involved in criminal activity to afford such a massive house. The group's driver, Dean, claims that he has a talent for reading people, but Joey proves him wrong by quickly figuring out each of their backstories, pinning Frank as a former police detective, Pete as the simple simple-minded muscle for hire, Sammy as a rich kid, and Rickles as an ex-Marine. It's a neat trick, but she's not the only one who can do it, and it turns out that Joey here is addicted to more than just candy. Frank here quickly pins her down as a former junkie, wanting Joey not to let her old habits screw up the job for the rest of them. After a little while, Joey goes to check on Abigail, who's still tied up in one of the bedrooms. Terrified, she begs the woman to let her go home. And although Joey says that she can't do that just yet, she agrees to remove the girl's blindfold and loosen her cuffs up a bit. Joey tries to reassure the girl that this will all be over soon, pinky promising Abigail that she won't let anyone hurt her, and admitting that she has a son of her own who's about the same age. When she learns that they're holding her for ransom, she says that the plan won't work because her father doesn't actually care about her. And as Joey goes to leave, the girl threateningly apologizes for what's about to happen to them all. Concerned, Joey goes back to the lounge to warn the others that the girl's father could be dangerous, but Frank tells her not to worry about it, saying that it's probably just a scare tactic. Still, there's something about the job that makes him think twice, so he decides to go check in with the girl for himself. Not knowing that Joey took off her blindfold, he's immediately jump scared when he realizes that Abigail can see his face, threatening her to forget any details that she might have seen. The girl confesses that her father is someone named Christophe Lazar, and for Frank here, this changes everything. Storming back to the bar, Frank starts collecting his things and telling the others that he's done with the job. Apparently, this guy Lazar is like some kind of boogeyman in the criminal underworld and has a way of making people who cross him regret that they'd ever been born. Joey suggests that they just anonymously give the girl back to her father, but Frank says that that won't be possible now that she's seen his face. And thanks to Joey's party trick, they all know enough about each other's own backstories that if Lazar is able to catch one of them, then he'll be able to track them all down. Thinking it through, they eventually decide to finish the job so that they can take the money and disappear, but the girl's father isn't the only one who they should be afraid of, as they're about to find out soon enough. Okay, wow, and here I was thinking that Joey was supposed to be some kind of professional. So much for that, I guess. The job was to keep things under control for 24 hours, but it only took 20 freaking minutes to completely lose control of the situation. And that's without the girl ever even getting out of the bedroom. It takes a special kind of talent to pull that one off, and Joey, you f***ed up. The truth at this point is that Joey couldn't have made things any more difficult for herself and everyone else in the crew if she tried. This job is high stakes as hell, and they don't even know the half of it yet. But just like Lambert said, the hard part was already over. Now all that she had to do was follow 3 very, very simple rules, and everyone would be going home $7 million richer. No real names, no backstories, and don't let the kid see anyone's face. You'd think that that should be pretty damn easy, right? And yet somehow this jabroni managed to break 2 of the 3 rules within the first hour of being there. Great job, Miss Criminal Mastermind! So they're supposed to know as little about each other as possible, right? And that's for a good reason. But then this moron goes around doing her crystal ball routine and exposing everyone's exact backstories like she works for the FBI. Seriously, lady? You might as well have had everyone write down their home addresses and social security numbers while you were at it, because it's no use trying to keep anyone's identity a secret now. But somehow, that's not even the worst thing that she did. For being such a mind reader, Nancy Drew here sure was easily manipulated by a few tears. She walked into that room with everything going as smoothly as possible, and then within 60 measly seconds took off the girl's blindfold and loosened the cuffs for her like she's running a daycare here. That's honestly impressive for the kid. Harry Houdini couldn't have gotten himself out of this predicament faster, but she Jedi mind tricked her captor into pretty much letting her go in less time than it takes to warm up a damn Hot Pocket. And the scariest part is that she's just getting started. Seriously, Joey, what kind of self-respecting criminal forms an immediate emotional connection with the person who they're literally using as a bargaining chip to steal $50 million from her father? Is it because you felt bad for her? Well, I hate to break it to you, but did you not notice how she wasn't such a scared little kid anymore when she apologized for what's about to happen to you like a mountain lion locked in a room full of guinea pigs? That girl isn't in danger. She is the danger, and as bad as that sounds, they have no idea how crazy things are about to get. Joey here did pretty much everything that she could have done to make this as complicated as possible. And now, just like Frank said, even if they still somehow manage to pull this off, the kid will be able to tell her dad who they were, and they'll have to live the rest of their lives on the run from both the law and the king of the criminal underground. Oh yeah, and they're about to find out that she's a f***ing vampire, so have fun with that. I'm sorry, Joey, but you f***ed up. While the others hold their positions, Joey searches through the house looking for any potential ways that they might have missed. Meanwhile, Sammy tries to relax by throwing on some cartoons in one of the upstairs bedrooms, only to get a surprise visit from her buddy Dean. Somehow the lover boy here has convinced himself that she wants him, but Sammy aggressively chases him out of the room, making it as clear as humanly possible that she isn't interested. With nothing better to do, Dean decides to go have a look around the kitchen next, and while he's searching through the fridge for some Scooby snacks, a doorway behind him mysteriously creaks open all on its own. For some reason, this genius thinks that it would be a good idea to investigate on his own. And at first, all he finds is a rat rummaging through an old storage room, but as he turns to leave, something quickly grabs him by the ankles and slams his head into the stairs, dragging him back as he screams out to the others for help. Hearing the commotion, Sammy nervously follows the noise to see what happened. There's no sign of Dean in the storage room, but when she goes back to the kitchen, she finds what's left of him sitting at the table, with his throat cut so deeply that his entire head falls off the moment that she touches him. Okay. Well, I think we all knew that it was only a matter of time before this happened to someone, and I can't say that I'm surprised that it was Dean here who went out first. You see, folks, this scenario right here is exactly why I always say that watching too many horror movies can actually save your life. Vanilla Ice here broke the #1 rule of spending the night in a creepy old house. Never, and I mean never, go to investigate any strange noises or self-opening doors, especially down in the basement. And double especially when you're alone and nobody else has died yet. If you do, then you better at least have a cross and a flamethrower ready for whatever is on the other side. And keep your head on a swivel before you end up without one at all. Better yet, just mind your own business, shut the door, and walk away like you never saw a damn thing. The danger here couldn't have been more obvious if there'd been a giant neon sign hanging above the door that said, "Decapitations this way." But he still walked in there doing the old hello, hello, as if we haven't been warned about this kind of since back in the 80s. That's how you wind up getting used as a prop in some sicko's idea of a practical joke, and we'll never stand a chance if we keep falling for the oldest slasher movie tricks in the book. Now, the others are about to see what happened to Dean here in just a minute, and right about now is when anyone with a functioning brain would say that it's about time to get the absolute out of this house, but unfortunately for them, it isn't going to be as simple as just walking through the front door. They're about to realize that they're all trapped in here with whatever the hell did that to Dean. And that completely changes the game. We saw that Dean wasn't in the chair when Sammy first came down, and the fact that whatever they're up against is strong, fast, and stealthy enough to move his body into position without her even noticing proves that they could easily be ambushed at any time. This means that, from now on, everyone needs to stick together so that they can watch each other's backs, and try to seal themselves off in as small of an area as possible to limit the killer's potential angles of attack. The one good thing here is that they're all heavily armed, but I wouldn't want to take any chances. What they need to do now is quickly set themselves up in as secure of a spot as they can, and then just hope that they're able to make it through the rest of the night. They're probably also going to be worried about keeping the girl safe, but as we already know, and they're about to find out, Abigail herself is the one who's really a threat. Now it's Pete who comes to check things out, and after seeing what happened to the driver, they decide that it's time to call an emergency team meeting. From the looks of things, they're worried that this could all be the work of Lazar's top henchman, an absolute psycho named Valdez, who has a reputation for being a very brutal killer, who can get to you no matter where you try to hide. The group decides to go upstairs and check on the girl, trying their best to figure out how Valdez could have known where to find them. Frank finds Abigail still safe and sound right where they left her, but Rickles here says that he has had enough. telling the others that he's going home. Down in the foyer, he pulls open the front door only to discover that they've been locked in by a heavy iron gate. Even all 270 pounds of Pete can't make it so much as bulge. But that's not even the worst part, because all of a sudden, metal shutters rise up to cover the windows, leaving the four of them trapped inside. Panicking, Rickles sprints back to his lookout post on the top floor, where he finds that his weapon is missing. And Joey decides to confront the girl to see if she can tell them anything about what's going on here. Upset, Abigail hesitates to tell her anything at first, but then tries to throw Frank under the bus, saying that the detective himself has been Valdez all along. Out in the hall, Joey tells Rickles what she's just learned, but they both can't shake the feeling that something about all of this doesn't exactly add up. Ricky here decides that he's going to interrogate Frank to find out what he knows, sending Joey to go round up the other two. But the instant that they turn their backs on each other, something incredibly strange happens. Sensing trouble, Joey turns around to see Rickles quietly standing there at the end of the hallway, and when she approaches him, she discovers that half of the man's face and throat has been completely torn out without any signs of a struggle. Horrified, Joey goes back to the bar and confronts the others, accusing Frank of being the hitman. But he has a different idea about what's happening here. Frank thinks that the girl is trying to play them against each other and sends Pete here to force the answers out of her if that's what it's going to take. The situation escalates into a tense standoff, but while everyone is distracted, the girl decides that it's time to show them who's really the most dangerous person in the house. Breaking her own hands, Abigail slides out of her cuffs and stands up on the bed, shrieking at her captors with a mouthful of razor-sharp fangs. Before anyone can even react, she leaps onto Peter, about to bite out his throat, forcing Frank to take her down with a single well-placed hit. But the girl immediately rises right back up from the floor, completely unharmed. Terrified, the four of them quickly retreat back out to the hallway and lock the bedroom door behind them, which seems like it'll hold Abigail back, at least for now. Okay, well, damn. I guess now that they know what they're up against, but somehow it's even worse than the most dangerous hitman on the planet. We've got a literal ballerina vampire on the loose, and she's already taken out almost half of the team before they even realized what was going on. Unless they want to end up like Dean and Rickles, it looks like they only have two choices here. Either figure out a way to get out of the house, or deal with the problem head on and take care of Abigail. Since getting out of the house seems like the easier of the two options, let's start there first. They won't be going anywhere until they can get around that gate, but if they put their heads together, then they might be able to come up with a few ideas. We need to bypass the security system, but without Sammy's hacker gear, they'll have to get creative with their approach. The first thing that comes to mind is trying to find the breaker box and then manually resetting the power to the entire building, which hopefully might release the locks. If that doesn't work, then the next step would be to get physical. The gate might be too strong for Pete to knock down, but if they grab some of that rope from the basement where Dean got killed, then all four of them might be able to work together and pull the gate open. They could also try gathering up a bunch of explosives from the kitchen and then blasting the gate or one of the window coverings out of the frame. Besides that, I might try working around the security system altogether by looking for a secret exit, since it's almost a guarantee that there's always some kind of secret passages hidden around a house like this. If they can't get out is when things get really bad, because then their only choice is to fight the vampire. That wooden door isn't going to keep her trapped for long. In fact, she's probably out of there already, so they need to come up with a battle plan, and fast. For this, we need to start with what we already know about vampires. They have superhuman strength, speed, and senses, and can rapidly heal from any wounds, as we saw during their first battle. We'll also have to watch out for her mind-controlling abilities and her power to shapeshift into creatures like the rat that Dean saw down in the basement. As for weaknesses, we've got sunlight, wooden stakes, garlic, crosses, silver, and of course, good old-fashioned fire to work with. With that being said, the absolute first thing that I'm doing here is putting on one of those suits of armor that are lying all around the house. Not only will this make it more difficult for her to chomp me, but it'll also give me the confidence boost that I'm absolutely going to need to make it out of this alive. Next, we need weapons. I'd start by going to the kitchen for anything silver and making stakes and crosses out of whatever I could find. All of the fireplaces are already lit, so it should be easy enough to make some torches, and the alcohol behind the bar might even work to make some Molotov cocktails. They just need to be careful not to set the entire place on fire before they have a way to get out. They have an advantage by coming here already strapped, although unfortunately their firepower doesn't seem to do much. But a headshot does stun her for at least a few seconds. It won't hold her back forever, but a well-placed shot could buy you some time if you get cornered and need to make a quick exit. Frank here mentioned that it's already around 3:30 a.m., which means that in about 3 hours or less, the sun will be back up. This gives them another weapon against Abigail if they're able to somehow let the sunlight into the building, and could cut off entire sections of the house, making it a safe zone for the survivors, at least during the daylight hours. Like we said before, the key here is for everyone to stick together in a secure part of the house. They could even set up traps for Abigail if they're willing to risk it by tricking her into chasing someone. And then, while she's focused on them, have a friend pop out from around a corner and hit her with a stake. Now, if things get really bad, then I've got 2 vampire lore-based backup plans that are so crazy that they just might work. Option 1. Since vampires can't enter private property unless they were invited, I would make a blanket for it and put a sign on it that says, "No Abigail." Option 2. Some stories say that vampires can't cross running water, so I go stand in the bathtub with the faucet running and then she can't get me. Are either of these guaranteed to work? Hell no, but when you're fighting an undead ballerina, it's time to start thinking outside of the box. Racing back down to the foyer, the group decides that they need to come up with a plan for what the hell they're gonna do now that their hostage just revealed herself to be a vampire ballerina. Frank asks Sammy if she can somehow crack into the security system, but she says that it won't be possible without any of her hacker gear. Realizing that they're trapped here until Lambert comes back, Joey and the others start spitballing any ideas that they've heard for how to fight little Dracula Jr. up there. After going over some of the usual cliches, the detective sends Pete to go sharpen some pool cues into wooden stakes, and Sammy to the kitchen to look for some garlic, planning to arm the group with some vampire-slaying tools and then take the fight to Abigail for a change. Joey tries to tell him that it's a bad idea, saying that the girl is going to be expecting a counterattack, but Frank refuses to listen as he leads the others back up to Abigail's room. Charging into the room, they're shocked to discover that Abigail has somehow managed to escape, and that's when they hear classical music playing from somewhere up on the next floor. Following the noise, the 3 of them eventually come to a room where they find the girl dancing around on the stage with the rest of Dean's headless body. Sammy rushes in at the girl first, but Abigail easily overpowers her, tearing the garlic out of her hands and taking a big ol' sniff just to prove that their vegetable-based warfare will be of no use here. Pete manages to grab her next, but despite him being more than twice her size, she takes him down and starts stabbing the crap out of him with the cross that he wears around his neck. Furious, Frank comes in from behind and brings his stake down as hard as he can, but Abigail grabs his arm, spins herself around, and plunges the pool cue straight through his thigh. The 3 of them quickly retreat back out of the room, and Abigail allows them to escape for now, but it won't be long before she comes back for another round. Okay, Frank here had the right idea about trying to take care of the vampire as soon as possible. The only problem was that they walked right into an obvious trap, instead of trying to play to their own advantages. These meatbags lost the 3-on-1 when all they had to do was rush her at the same time, land a single shot with one of those stakes, and then it would have been all over just like that. Pete was even strong enough to hold her still for at least a little while. So if they would have just stayed working together instead of panicking like a bunch of idiots, then one of the others could have easily gotten her with a stake while he was holding her down. Of course, it would have been nice to have a little extra help from Joey. Plus, the more of them that get killed just means that she has less meat shields to use for cover. She's still stuck on the idea of keeping Abigail alive as a bargaining chip, but you can't exactly bargain for your lives if she already killed you all off. Now they're all more injured, morale is at an all-time low, and for every fight they get that much weaker, while Abigail only gets stronger. Clearly, fighting the girl on her own terms isn't going to work. They need to regroup, hold down a defensive position somewhere in the house, and the next time that they have a chance to take her down, make sure that they don't miss. Back downstairs, Joey uses her medic skills to get Frank's leg bandaged up. As luck would have it, she has a second dose of the sedative that knocked the girl out earlier that night, and thinks that it should do the trick again if they can catch her. So they come up with the brilliant plan for everyone to split up and search the house one room at a time, with whoever finds her first sounding the alarm for the others to come running. What could possibly go wrong? Somewhere in the house, Sammy here discovers an old wooden box that looks big enough to be the girl's coffin, but is relieved to find it empty when she pulls open the lid. Wandering farther down the hall, she gets frightened when a bat charges her from the shadows, and ends up tumbling backwards right into a pool filled with dozens of disgusting rotten corpses. Hearing that Sammy's in trouble, the rest of the group rushes to help her out, but while they're distracted, Abigail emerges from the darkness right behind Peter, and he immediately starts running for his life. He tries locking a door in her path, but Abigail blasts right through it like it's made out of tissue paper, doing little ballerina moves as she chases him through the halls. In the chaos, Frank accidentally nails Peter with a door, sending him tumbling over the railing and crashing down to the floor below. Abigail goes for the former detective next, acrobatically leaping after him as he tries to run away and pushing him down the stairs as well. As the girl stands over him, Joey rushes in to hit her with the syringe, but she knocks it out of the woman's hands and through a metal gate blocking one end of the hall, where it lands just out of her reach. With Peter down, it's all up to Sammy to save Frank's life. But as she grabs Abigail to hold her back, the girl takes a nasty chomp out of her arm. Grabbing Frank's leg, Abigail starts to levitate up from the ground to drag him away. But that's when Pete comes flying in from the top rope and body slams her back down to the floor, holding her down for just long enough that Joey is finally able to hit her with a dose from the syringe. As for Sammy, she's worried that she might be about to turn into a vampire next, but for now, they decide that there's no way to tell. Okay, this is definitely not good. They say that they aren't sure what's going to happen to Sammy here, but if we're going based on established vampire lore, then we're most likely looking at one of two outcomes, and they're both bad news. Either she starts turning herself into a vampire, or she could become Abigail's mind-controlled servant. And that could mean all kinds of problems for the rest of the crew. Unfortunately, all that they can do for now is wait to see what happens to her, and then react from there. In the meantime, I'd be sure to keep a close eye on her and start regularly checking in to see if she still has a reflection. As for what to do with Abigail, they should really just end this whole thing right now while she's immobilized. If she wakes up, then she's going to be pissed, so this might be the best and probably the last chance to take her out that you're ever going to get. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, why even bother with the sedatives in the first place? While Pete had her held down, they should have just used a stake instead and called it a night. As an added bonus, this would also hopefully save Sammy's life by getting rid of the vampire that bit her. So there's no reason not to end the fight while they still have the chance. One of their biggest mistakes here was even splitting up to begin with. Abigail needs them for their blood, so there's no reason to go searching for her. Why not let the girl come to you instead? That way they can fight her on their own terms, organized and with better numbers. If they keep letting her pick them off one by one, then it's only going to get easier for the vampire. So the last thing that they need to be doing here is giving her more opportunities by splitting up like fucking Scooby-Doo. Their lives are on the line here, so it's time to start acting like it before it's way too late. By the time that Abigail eventually wakes up, she realizes that the others have her trapped inside of the metal elevator, and Joey tells her that it's time to drop the little girl act. Frank here tries apologizing his way out of it, saying that the whole thing was all just a misunderstanding, but Abigail isn't going to let that one slide. That's when the girl reveals that she was the one who set up the job all along. She already knows all about who each of them really are, and not only that, but that they've all been responsible for screwing over her family's criminal business in some way. The truth is that the 50 million doubloons was all a lie. The girl brought them all here for her to hunt, and the only reason that she didn't kill them right away is because she thinks that torturing them first is fun. Abigail decides to offer the group one last chance to save themselves, saying that whoever lets her out gets to live, and Joey ends up in a standoff with Pete when the guy actually starts considering it. The moment that he goes for the door, Joey grazes him with a shot to the side that scares Pete back to his senses, and takes Sammy with her to get him patched up, leaving Frank alone to watch the girl. As soon as the others are out of earshot, Abigail strikes up a deal with Frank, telling him about a secret door behind the bookshelves in the library if he agrees to let her out. When it's time for Frank's end of the deal, he only laughs at the girl for believing that he'd actually fall for it, but that's when she just throws the whole door across the room like she was always going to do anyway, and leaps out to attack him before even realizing what's happening. At the last second, Joey gets the idea to knock open the boards blocking one of the windows, letting in a beam of morning sunlight that instantly vaporizes Abigail's hand and forces the girl back just long enough for them to get away. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that makes you start rooting for the bad guy. How many more times are these idiots going to pass up their chance to get rid of her when it's staring at them right in the face? Like, hello? They all saw what the sunlight just did to her, and right now that vampire is just as injured as she's ever going to be. All that Frank had to do was grab onto the girl and pull her into the light just a little bit further, get her head in there, and it would have been game over for Mini Nosferatu. Or all four of them could have dragged her into the light and she would have died right there. Now that it's daylight, they should go around opening up any windows that they can find to let in as much sunlight as possible. But if these morons could make even one smart decision, then this whole thing would have been over 20 minutes ago. So I guess let's just wait to see how they manage to screw up next. The four survivors regroup back in the library, where Sammy nervously touches a beam of sunlight coming down from the window, but is relieved to find that she's still human, at least for now. Things aren't going so well for Frank though, because he quickly discovers that the hidden door behind the bookshelf was just another one of Abigail's tricks. Still not ready to give up, Joey starts searching the room for any other secret passageways, but everything that she tries turns out to be a dead end, and it's only a matter of time before Abigail comes back to finish the job. That's when Sammy here realizes that she might actually be able to open the locks without her hacking gear after all. All that they need to do is find the power source, and then she can hopefully short out the system so the crew splits up into two groups to search the rest of the house. At the end of one of the hallways, Pete and Sammy eventually come to some kind of creepy old greenhouse area. With Sammy's nerves really starting to get to her, Pete reassures her that they can get through this with the power of friendship as long as they stick together. But the moment that he turns his back on her, Sammy's bite wound rapidly heals back up as Abigail puts the girl under her mind control. The transformation happens before she can even give him a warning, and when Pete turns around, he sees that Sammy has disappeared into thin air, only for her to suddenly reappear from out of the shadows, lunging at Pete and biting a huge chunk out of his neck as Abigail manipulates her like a puppet. After finishing up with Pete, Sammy calls out to the others for help, trying to lure them into a trap. They find her hunched down over the big guy's body, putting on a not so convincing act of being worried. But Joey can immediately tell that something's wrong, and they take off running back to the library with Vampire Sammy hot on their heels. It isn't long before she has them cornered, but as Sammy charges towards them, Joey holds up a shiny metal tray to reflect the sunlight directly onto her, instantly melting her into a cloud of bloody chunks. Okay, so they sent the girl with the vampire bite off alone with just one other person. No surprise how that one worked out. Hey Pete, I know you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but when the vampire bite victim suddenly disappears without warning, you need to get your guard up right away. Don't just stand there confused waiting to get your throat chomped. One positive thing that came out of this was Joey learning a good trick with the reflecting daylight attack that should be useful in case Abigail comes back. But before that happens, the window gives me another idea. I mean, look at it. It's open. No shield on that one. All you gotta do is get up there and jump out, and it might be a tough climb, but you watch how quickly I turn into Assassin's Creed when the other option is sticking around to become vampire food. We're all officially down to the bitter end, and now it's time to see if anyone gets to leave this house alive. Just then, a secret door really does open up from behind one of the bookshelves. The passageway leads them deep behind the walls until they eventually come to a sort of control room, where they find their old buddy Lambert waiting inside, but oh he's a vampire too. Lambert pins Joey to the wall, and turning to Frank, he offers him a deal. He says that he's tired of working for Abigail's family and wants Frank's help to get rid of both her and her father so that they can take over their entire business. But first, Frank himself is going to have to become one of them. Thinking it over, Frank decides to take the deal, allowing Lambert to transform him into a fully independent vampire by biting him and making him drink some of his own infected blood. With the transformation complete, Lambert tells Frank to finish taking care of Joey, but instead, he pierces Lambert through the chest with a wooden stake, betraying him so that he can take all of the power for himself. Just when it looks like it's all over for Joey, little Abigail shows up and pounces onto Frank from behind, only for him to spin around and start draining the blood out of her neck. While they're distracted, Joey uses the nearby control panel to deactivate the house's security system, opening up a chance for her to escape as she races back out towards the library. Frank catches up to her before she can get very far, tossing Joey up onto the second floor walkway and slamming her all around the room before he goes in for the kill. After saying that he's going to make her one of his puppets, Frank holds her out over the railing and drops Joey back down to the floor below. But now it's Abigail who slides in and catches her just in time. She says that she needs Joey's help to take out Frank, and if they win, then she'll let her go home. So the two of them decide to team up and put the beat down on this creep for the last time. With Joey backing her up, Abigail starts kicking Frank's ass using her ballerina moves. But he's still too strong for either of them to beat on their own, and while the vampire girl is down from a very nasty hit, he overpowers Joey, bites her on the neck, and tries to convert her into one of his minions. Handing her a stake, he orders Joey to finish off Abigail for him, but it turns out that learning that kind of power actually takes centuries of practice. And just when it looks like she's going to obey him, Joey spins around and turns the weapon back on Frank. He's able to throw her off, but this gives Abigail a chance to go back on the attack, and with Joey's help, they drive the stake deep into Frank's chest, taking him out in a massive shower of blood. The girl thanks Joey for her help, saying that she doesn't need to worry about being transformed now that the vampire who bit her is dead, but getting away won't be so simple. Abigail holds up her end of the deal, but just as Joey goes to leave, the girl's father finally shows up, and Joey falls to the ground in front of him, completely helpless and terrified. Abigail steps in between the two just when her father is about to go for the kill, demanding that he lets Joey go for saving her life. Extending a hand, he thanks Joey with a kiss, but tells her that she better get out of there before he changes his mind. Exhausted, mind blown, and covered in blood, Joey staggers back out to the van where she takes out a crumpled up lollipop and speeds away from the house without looking back, having just learned an extremely important lesson. The next time that you're looking to make a quick buck, just make sure that the plan doesn't involve kidnapping Dracula Jr. Well, that was just crazy. Maybe these cast of characters did not know what a vampire was or is, and they've never seen Dracula, and they just thought that all this was happening to them for some unknown reason. But if it was me, I would have gotten the out of there way at the beginning of the movie. But let me know down in the comments what you would have done. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.